Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
This is Station. We are ready for the event.
It's South by Southwest.
Greetings from the International Space Station. I'm astronaut Kate Rubins.
Hi, I'm astronaut Victor Glover.
And we're up here. We are orbiting 260 miles above the planet Earth. We spend most of our days up here doing research. We've got a huge scientific program. It's actually really incredible. We do station maintenance as well. So we do things like spacewalks, we do interior maintenance, and then we do have a little bit of downtime to enjoy life. We mostly look at the planet, take photos, we exercise to stay fit. So life up here is sometimes like life on Earth. We'd like to share a little bit of that with you. We hope you're having a wonderful time at South by Southwest, and we know it's virtual, so this is actually a great thing to do since we're distant from station up here.
Greetings, everyone, and it's great to be with you, even if it's just virtually. We've been building and now operating this space station for over 20 years, having folks on board conducting all types of science like Kate mentioned. So what we'd like to do is just answer some of the most common questions that we get for you all today. And so with that, I will start. Kate, quarantine and isolation are something that you experience as an astronaut and also with the rest of the population during the coronavirus pandemic. Anything you've learned in your training or experience that you can share with all of us?
Yeah, so I actually used to be a biosafety level 4 researcher before I came to NASA. I worked on smallpox and Ebola. So viruses and thinking about pandemic are nothing new, but it was certainly very new to me to live through a pandemic. I think all of us have had that crazy experience at the same time. So even if you're a researcher and you're completely prepared for the theoretical, I think the actual is much different. And I've pretty much learned along with the rest of you things to do to keep myself safe, my family safe, crewmates safe. We're certainly concerned about this when launching to the International Space Station, but the kinds of things that we've done to prepare to launch crews are basically the same isolation, testing, masking, these kinds of measures that everybody's doing on the Earth. So I think we're all learning together about this globally. And it's pretty tough, even as a BSL-4 infectious disease researcher.
I may be no virologist, but I think I'm going to come home quite a bit smarter from being up here with Kate for 6 months. So it's been great being up here with you.
All right, I got a question for you. So this is your first flight, but I got to tell you guys, Ike floated through the hatch like he had been up here for a year straight. This guy is incredibly experienced and very talented, but just thinking back in your first month in space, what's something surprising, something new that you learned, something interesting?
There are, I guess, two sides of it. So I will say one thing that I found really interesting is how much focus and attention everything requires. I mean, everything, simple things. At home, you can kind of have your both hands full and set something down and then focus on one and then go back and pick it up. And if you do that here, it is gone. And you may find it, in a week or two on the inlets. But the other thing, I guess, on the other side of the spectrum, it's not operational or scientific or anything. It's how much my family and friends have responded to this whole adventure. I mean, I've been thinking about it for so long that it's a big deal to me, but I knew it was a big deal, but seeing how my family and friends have responded and how much they watch NASA TV and every shred of information they can read about from the science to the spacewalks, that response has been really surprising to me. What sparked your interest in science, technology, engineering, or math?
So that's a great question. We get asked this a lot, and I actually have a few in different phases of my life. So when I was 5, you're a kid and people say, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be an astronaut, a biologist, and a geologist. And I was deadly serious about this at 5. So I think, ask kids what they want to do and take them seriously. Sometimes little kids really know. We had things like star watching parties. That was a pretty big inspiration to me. And I went to space camp. I am that person. I was a very big nerd, still am. So space camp was, that's a great thing to do. Not everybody can go to space camp, but there's a lot of educational things that kids can do online. And then when I was about 12, I started really seriously thinking about what kind of science. My dad took me to a conference on DNA and recombinant DNA technology. And that was just something absolutely amazing. I think the 11, 12 is a great age to really start to dive into some specifics of scientific questions. And I think one of the things is always to keep kids at the forefront when we're thinking about not just education science, but real science. And they can usually handle a lot more than we think they can. And so some of the best folks in my lab were people who were undergrads and even high school students. They can do real experiments, like, get them involved early. Dragging me to a scientific conference that a 12-year-old is really not going to grasp most of it, and I didn't, but I knew it was cool, and I knew I wanted to be doing it.
That's actually interesting, that age that you mentioned. In 5th grade, my science teacher, Mr. Hargrove, was the first person I ever talked to about engineering. He knew I liked math, and he said, hey, you keep doing this, you keep doing well in these classes, and you'd make a great engineer one day. And I tell this story a lot in my outreach, but, I actually thought that meant driving trains. I didn't know what an engineer was. But to this day, Mr. Hargrove's belief in me and his support is what encouraged me to eventually go on and study engineering in college and in graduate school, and is the reason that I'm here today. So that is an important age, and I'm with you. Setting those expectations high, and they will always surprise you if you give kids the information. I believe in that as well. Great answer.
All right, so how has being in space changed your perspective on Earth?
Wow. That is a really big question in a lot of ways. I guess I'm going to go from the big to the small, and I'm going to talk about green things because that's just what popped into my head, because I love food, and food popped into my head. We've had the pleasure of growing a few delicious vegetables here, and we've eaten them, and we joke about going home and having salads, big bowls of greens, but we each have had a fraction of a leaf or one leaf to ourselves, and really been able to savor this one piece of basil, this one piece of red kale or wasabi. And so I think that the next time I sit down in front of a real salad that I prepared or I got at a restaurant, I'm going to try and appreciate every morsel that's in that bowl instead of inhaling it like I normally will. And then in terms of on a really large scale, looking out the windows of the cupola and seeing the Earth, and there's so many places that I would love to go and visit, but I've really started to appreciate the places that I just know I'll never go visit. I was looking at just the open ocean. We were flying from the east coast of Canada, and we were going right toward the Bay of Biscay off the coast of France. And I took a picture. It looked like a little eyeball of clouds, and I just thought, I will never be able to visit that, but I've been able to see this really neat phenomenon there. And so thinking about all those forests that I'll never go hike in, and all those places on the earth that I'll never visit, but I get to see them from up here, I will appreciate that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we appreciate people who do explore these places on Earth. There's some places that are difficult to get to. We can see just barely Antarctica and, places in Patagonia, the Himalayas. There's some tough places to get to, and people do explore these on Earth.
Okay, Kate, based on your experience, what things, if any, might you do differently when you return home?
So number one, I am going to enjoy each leaf of my salad. We can't even describe to you what it feels like to eat a green thing up here that we've grown. You can see that we're in a really artificial environment, and it's cool, but the way that humans react to a completely artificial environment, I think, we've evolved for so many generations to be in nature and to respond to nature. And I thought this the last flight as well, that when I get home, I'm not going to complain about rain or the weather in Houston or anything related to nature. That lasts about a week. But I am going to definitely enjoy all the things that our planet has to offer, particularly things that are green, weather systems, wind, any of that sensation of not being in an artificial environment. We love this environment as well. This is our home. We even see it on videos sometimes when we go back, and I look at it and I think, wow, I feel like this is my home. But certainly the planet is home as well, and I'm going to always try to keep that in the forefront of my mind and appreciate that. All right, Ike, what do you like to do in your downtime on Space Station?
Well, we have so much of it that I have a really long list. How much time do we have? No, we do. We work pretty hard up here, and so downtime is pretty special. It's important, but it is a very important part of working hard up here. You have to have some time to relax and recuperate. And it's really interesting because I'm a very social and extroverted person on Earth, but up here when I have downtime, I just really enjoy the quiet. I like to read my news or a book and just spend time sitting in one place or floating in one place. And so I like to go into the airlock. That's my favorite spot to read, and I'll just turn the pages of a book or the newspaper, and I could do that for an entire Saturday. Ooh, this is a good one, Jake. All right. Oh, I like this one too. I might have to answer this one as well. This is a good one. What are some of the best and worst things about being in a zero gravity environment?
All right, we're going to start with some of the best things. It's incredible up here. I'm a scientist, and just the way that physics doesn't actually change. The laws of physics are the same, but you put humans in an environment where the laws of physics that we understand on Earth, controlled by gravity, there's completely different parameters. So, the way objects move, the way I would toss you the mic or take it back, understanding how you're going to move in space. It is like you are just in this world that you have never prepared. You really don't prepare for. We get a few seconds of zero G when we fly parabolic flights, but it is so different. And that changes everything. So it changes the properties of fluids. It changes, this is why we can do so many incredible experiments here. It changes the behavior of cells. It changes human beings themselves. So just being in an environment that is, you can conceptualize it, but you can't feel it until you've been here. And there's all kinds of parts of your brain that are responsible for things like proprioception, where your body is in space, how you move, how you expect other objects to move. And I think one of the best things about being in space is that it surprises you every time. You think you know what it's going to be like up here, and then it's just completely different. This is also sometimes one of the worst things about being in space. So you lose things really easily here because you have to deliberately put them down. You got to stick them to the wall with Velcro, and sometimes the Velcro comes off. And so we'll find spoons from expeditions, 20 expeditions ago up here. And so you got to keep track of your stuff. It's very easy to lose it, and you have to have a spot to put every single thing down. So the amazing parts of microgravity, you just have to laugh when you lose stuff up here, but we do lose things a lot, and then we find them a lot. We say the station taketh and the station giveth.
Yeah, that is a great one. There's so many things you could say in response to this question, so I'm actually not going to say anything. I'm going to physicalize it. So, okay, here's the worst thing, and I'm just going to give an example of what Kate was talking about. Here is the hardest place to find something that I found, and this is one of my favorite games to play on station, is going to find lost things. But here's one of the toughest places to find something that you lose.
Somebody comes along, hey, Ike, it's behind you.
Why is there yes, right behind your head?
Yes.
Or spoon or sock. Okay, what's one of the best things about station? Could you hold that for me?
Yeah.
I'm going to physicalize this one too. Don't laugh if I bump my head. This will never get old, and I know I'm going to miss it one day.
Do it. Woo! Awesome. That was awesome.
Microgravity changes the way many things behave. Kate, what are some of the different areas of science and experiments you're conducting on the space station?
Oh, y'all are in trouble. This could be an hour lecture. All right, we'll spare you. We'll give you the short version. So biology-wise, if you can think about, cells are in fluids, right? And the way that fluids change up here is really interesting. We don't have things like buoyancy-driven convection, and we don't have cells falling to the bottom of the tissue culture plate and adhering to the tissue culture plate. So this really changes how we would grow cells. So we've been doing a lot of cell culture and tissue engineering because we can build bigger structures up here. If we were going to put them in a rotating wall vessel on the Earth, we would then have fluid shear forces. And so we can do a lot of things that look at cellular behavior up here. And then all our cells are organized into these big bags of water that are human beings. Human beings change up here. So we have fluid shifts from our legs up towards our head. There's a lot of physiological changes here, the immune system. One of the things I'm working on right now is a map, about 1,000 samples of the entire microbiome of the space station. We've only gotten through biology here. There's still like chemistry and physics, and I won't keep going, but I will say that there's some really good material science studies up here. There's a lot of work on combustion. Combustion is very different on orbit. We've got some really interesting experiments on cool flames, things like colloids and self-assembly. We can look at mixtures of different materials without that buoyancy-driven convection. And then we've got this incredible platform. So we do a lot of things like remote sensing. We've got a lot of experiments on the outside of station, and a lot of really interesting experiments that are observing the Earth and looking at the space environment. So things like space radiation and magnetic fields on Earth.
You know, there's a lot of really interesting science, but there are also some really interesting technology application and production things going on as well. And just to talk about two real quick is the ability to create fiber optic devices or grow fiber optic cables, and then also to grow crystal structures like the radiation and light sensors. We're getting ready to start another sample in our microscience glove box to grow these indium iodide crystals, which will be used for radiation detectors. And because the production process now doesn't have to work against gravity, you're able to really make these nice crystal structures up here. And so it's also production in addition to science.
All right, so we're talking about experiments. Which experiments have been your personal favorites and why?
So I'm a little biased. I told you earlier that I really like food. And so you know where this is going. I'm participating in a study called food physiology, and it's looking at nutrients and increasing the amounts of omega fatty acids, lycopenes, and some other nutrients that we can get by eating more fruits, vegetables, nuts, and fish. And so one of the reasons I really like this experiment is because they gave me a whole lot of different foods, and it allows me to eat the standard food on station, but also to add these other nutrient-rich products in. And they analyze my body, blood, and other fluids over a few months prior to flight. There's different interval samples in flight, and then also they'll check me again after flight, and they'll be able to tell how it affects immune function, my gut biology, and also well-being, how you feel about the diet as well. And so I like the comprehensiveness of this study as well. Okay, Kate, this is a big question. Why does station science and research benefit life on Earth?
That is a really good question, and there's a couple of different tiers. So I think, you know, the first tier, the most basic tier, is really basic research. And basic research sometimes is hard to quantify in terms of its benefits. So we got a lot from the Apollo program, things that we're using today, 50 years later. We could not have predicted where that technology was going, but the technology development was mission driven. And some of the things and the technologies that we're testing out today, I don't know where they're going to go in 50 years, but certainly having the motivation to work on them, having the mission drive to work on them, and having the support of the ground teams all working on this goal, which is first to build and fly the International Space Station, and now is to use it as a laboratory. This spurs a lot of research, innovation, and development. Then in the use of this space station as an incredible laboratory, we're doing a lot of basic science. So we were talking about things like combustion. We're doing a lot of things with capillary action and fluid physics. Capillary action is 87 times up here what it would be on the Earth. And so Ike was talking a little bit about some of these like the Z-bland fibers and structures that you can build in space. It allows us to do things on a bigger scale up here. And so we can learn a lot about fundamental properties of things in the physical world, things in the biological world. Then we also have some really much more directed types of research and technology. And so sometimes NASA needs to answer a question about astronaut health, and it's a very directed question about, for example, our bone loss up here, our immune systems, and that's got absolute immediate relevance to things like osteoporosis on Earth. We have understanding of immune system interaction. I'm talking about human and microbial interaction up here, and these are really things that are very big interest in the planet, because these are human diseases that people are experiencing all of the time. And then we've got some general insights just from the environment that we're in. And so I think there's a lot up here, and it goes all the way from very basic research to very applied research. But the really cool thing is we've got about 200 of these experiments going at the same time. Each one of them has a particular benefit either to our understanding of exploration, how humans are going to be in the future, where NASA's looking forward to their future exploration, and or direct benefit to life on Earth. And almost everything actually has use in both of those areas. All right, Ike, I see you got your iPad there. What tools and technology do you use in space to stay connected with what's happening on Earth?
It's a great question. And I happen to be holding one of them in my hand right now, and talking to one of them as well. No, actually, I would say most of what we use to stay informed is our friends and teammates on the ground, our colleagues on the ground. And so whether that's sending up media for us, movies and TV shows, or the newspaper, I like to read my news. So we also have an ability to watch news. They can pipe up a news station to us, or a major event like the Super Bowl or the inauguration. But I really like to read my news, and so I get a morning and an evening news digest, and I generally start there. And also talking to friends and family, getting those updates about what's going on. Those are the primary ways.
One of the best things, though, is that you can send an out-of-office message on your email and say, I'm off the planet and will not be able to respond to your email message. So we can stay as connected or as disconnected as we like.
That's a great